All right. Hey, good morning to all. Sam here. We're at December 20th on a Wednesday mid-morning. Had a request from a member to take a look at Verge, which is just getting lit up today. Well, really over the last 24 hours, this thing is just launched. So good day to look at it. Now, so first, okay, so let's go over here just to be consistent. Let's go over here to CoinGecko, where I always encourage you to just check on a coin, see how it's doing. So here at 66, and I always suggest you look at coins with a score of 50 or higher. And if you're not familiar with this project, this is a good place to do a little digging so you can get some sense of it, depending on your level of appetite for the fundamental story. We got a we're 1 point almost at 2 billion in market cap. And the bulk of the trading, of course, is all in Bitcoin here. So we're at 95%, and the bulk of that is on Bittrex. So just again, it's always a good resource here if you want to get some ideas on why a coin like this is getting such good traction. But let's go over to the chart and see if there's anything we can learn here. Now, this is actually kind of a good example of some of the challenges that we face in crypto with these cycles that we seem to have. So now I've got a count on here. This is the easy count to spot. This is on the 1 hour, but I want to show you this. Let's go back out to the 8 hour. So here's the challenge you have here. So if we go back here to our absolute lows, let's see if I can put this so you get some sense. So this, you can't ignore this, right? So this, from down here at its very lowest low that I just marked it off here. I mean, that's a legitimate, one wave here. I mean, you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and huge extension into the fifth. So we can't ignore that. We get a nice ABC that corrects it, and then we get what appears to be an attempt here to get started again, going impulsive to continue with that wave count. But then we go into just this kind of down sideways action here. So we get a failure swing. So, to some degree, it's tempting to want to do this. So it's tempting to want to go here and go, okay, well, we can definitely see an impulsive move here. And we definitely get a very deep move here. Let me just get these. I got to finish that. Let me put that in a different color and just make this point. So what do you do with that? I mean, do we keep it part of the story? It's kind of a tricky choice you have to make here, because we are in effect we're double bottoming here. I mean, we're within a very small distance. So do you include this 1, 2? I would suggest yes. You can still technically call this a 2, which means what we're in here is a 3. That makes sense. And clearly we get you'd have to go with. Boy, it's ugly on the correction because of this action here. But you'd have to try and get a count on it. So that would have to be your A, B, and then we get a little 5 wave into the C, and then we'd have to come down here. We might that might, if I was really digging into it on a smaller timetable, we might have some complexity here. So we might have. I mean, you could see it's very rare to find a triangle, so I would not go A, B, C, D, E. It's just very rare to find that in a second wave. But I guess to some extent, my point is I don't know how much this matters here. If we continue to keep this as a 1, 2, it ultimately will have impact relative to where we retrace. But you can see here from this low here, which now I'm going to mark off again. Now we're starting an entirely new impulsive structure. So these have to go way, way, way up here. So let me bring this back down. This is just kind of a unique issue. I mean, these are high-class problems to have in crypto, but I think you can work this trade and anything that we're doing from the premise here that however this ends up playing, what we can see is our launch point here. And then we get a very clean 5 wave. So I take this back to the 1 hour, and we look and see, okay, well, it's from our launch down here, which we can still label this as a 2. And if I get that right on it. What's relevant to us here is that at this point, we can call this a completed 5 wave. Now, where and when these other much higher, if we're going to keep this as a third, I'd have to change that degree. Actually, I'd have to go above. I'd have to go to primary. So this potentially can come into play here based on what kind of retracement we see here. But right now we can look at this and say, well, I can qualify this as a completed impulsive wave. So as to how it plays in the very longest term, it isn't as relevant to us as swing traders trying to deal with where the next opportunity to get long is. So as I look at that, I see, and we can't be definitive about this being a top here because this could get relabeled given the size of that, and we just look at the oscillator. I mean, you certainly are wanting to call that a 3. So maybe on this larger scale, we can work from the 2, 3. But as we sit here now, looking at potentially the next place where we might look for a long, given the incredible action that we're getting here, I mean, I suppose this ultimately could end up looking like this. And this is kind of where you just have to be flexible with an Elliott count. We could make the case that we've got a 1, 2. You can see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You definitely could make that case. So if we do that, well, of course, we've got to wick off our 1. And as we've seen, this is our 2. So where is this relevant? Why is it worth kind of struggling through that prior spike, that move, and then trying to evaluate where we're here? Because we're getting a series of pivots here, and we still at this point we really can't be too definitive about that being a good top. So if I open this up, what we're trying to find is some subdivision here. And I mean, it's there. It's not well developed enough to really be certain about it. So even if I go down to let's try if we get any better with the 30-minute. So you may at this point, if forced to put a count on it, I guess there's no trade here yet, but we might have this underway if we're going to get a more traditional correction. We get the spike down. Now, granted, I've gone all the way from an 8-hour down to a 15-minute. So be mindful of that scaling here. So this is an important pivot, so that's critical to us. If we're going to operate on the assumption here that we're going to get an AB, so we know a B wave, if that's what we're looking at here, which kind of looks that way. We know a B wave. If we've got an A in play, here's our A, B, C into the B wave. We may well have just put in a little kind of a double top here. We've tapped the 618 twice. That certainly is a contender. And then we'd be looking for something down here. So we're trying to find some confluence zones. Where can we find good structure that makes sense with this count? Because this huge impulsive move here, has you thinking, okay, well, there's my 3, where's my 4? So now if I'm going to pull from my 2 up to what may be, we don't know yet, may be my 3, well, now I'm getting some confluence down here that gets my attention. So now I've got my algo target if this is going to hold here. It certainly plays as an A into a 3-wave B. We come down here, we get a nice little confluence zone down here. So that certainly sets up nicely. We have to be mindful of the fact that we're seeing a lot of this. I don't know how many times in a row I've shown you guys videos of a shallow C wave. So we would want to be watching for that to continue because we're just seeing it all over crypto. So I would draw this up, acknowledging, well, right now, I don't even really have a C wave yet. So am I going to come here? Am I going to come here? It's premature to be drawing this trend line. I wouldn't draw it off of that yet because that's part of my B wave. So if I open that up, just to get clear on that. So we know a B wave needs to be counter trend. So this ABC would imply that we're up into a B and we're looking for now this move down to complete the subdivision here. So if I can get my arrow. So what we're looking for is this. Now ideally it comes down here. That would be an easy trade to take. Doesn't mean it's a winner, but it's an easy trade to take because you've got all the ingredients that we look for. We've got the subdivision that we like. We've got a move down here from the B towards the algo target. We're at within the high probability zone for a third. That's between the 38 and the 50. So this is a trade that now sitting here going, well, is there anything I can do in Verge today or over the next day or two coming up? Well, this is the perfect one. Right? The market doesn't always give you perfect, but that's the one that you'd wait for. So I would want to be notified via an alert, assuming this is our B. We don't quite know yet because this could just keep going. We just don't know. But at least we have something that makes sense there as to why we're pivoting there. So that, potentially you've got algo action there where they're selling it, looking for a move down here. This would set it up just beautifully. Set it up that would be just gorgeous. So that's one to watch. Of course, here's your invalidation point down here at the wave one high. That we've got plenty of cushion there from this move up here on the third. So if this is going to continue to stay within this Elliott structure, the opportunity here now is to be looking to get long again. I wouldn't be a buyer here just yet myself, because I would want to wait. My view is you wait for your trade. There's so many things to trade. There's so much volatility, so much opportunity in crypto. Why force a trade because you're worried about missing the next move up in anything? Wait for your trade, because somewhere across the board with at least 100 major cryptos to be trading, you're going to find your trade. So my view is wait for what you like. That's what I like right there. So I would wait for that. Doesn't mean that I'm going to get it. This could easily take off, and then we're relabeling again. But that's where the opportunity that I see, and you could take that knowing that if this is going to keep going, at some point here we're coming up to look for a third, that larger degree third. And then again, there'll be another 4 if this is going to keep going. So if we start to put this back into context, all right? So it looks gigantic on the 30-minute here. Well, let's go back to the hourly, get a little perspective on it. So here was our 2 low. So that would put you long there. It's skinny. Let's go to the 4-hour and now give it some context. Right, so here's your most significant pivot if we're going to keep this as part of our story, even though we have this very deep 2 wave here. This is yet still the third. So if you keep this as part of your story, which I would we don't want to discount it. We're in a 1-2, 1-2, putting in the third of the third of the third, right? So this is that is, you couldn't be better positioned if you're in this. Good for you. So the thirds are your impulse waves, so that's your money making opportunity, right? So to be in the third of the third of the third, that's a good place to be. If you're there, congratulations. So we'll see how this plays, but eventually we're going to come up here, and now take note here. We're in the blue degree here. So if I open this back up, in that we're looking for the 5th here. For the 5th, this is still yet up here. We'd be looking for the 5th of the third, right? Of the third. I know you have to kind of map it out for yourself so you understand where you are. What that means is that we've got gigantic upside potential here if this is going to play. If this is our roadmap right now, no reason to suspect that it won't. So next opportunity, if we're so fortunate as to see this kind of pullback here, is right here at that 50, pulling from the 2 low. That's the next thing that I see, knowing that eventually we're going to come up here and we're going to complete one of these third waves. Then beautiful. And if you missed it, or if you don't catch this, or we don't get the opportunity here, eventually we're going to complete this third, and then we just sit patiently and we wait for the 4th, just like we're waiting for the 4th here. Right, we know we're in a third. We're waiting for the 4th. Can we get the entry ticket that we like, that gives us everything we look for? Confluence, price, pattern, risk reward that is reasonable, that we can get into it without overexposing our account. Knowing that there's just enormous upside here if this is going to continue to follow this Elliott count. Just gigantic. We're just getting started. So lots of opportunity here. This is definitely a coin to be on your radar for everything I just showed you. So with that, I'll wrap this one here now and be back to you shortly with another one.